Hi, my name is Nicholas Karn. This is my EDL 851 Module 8 assignment. So the first article, which was the NEA Every Student Succeeds Act, just as a quick summary of what the article said was, number one, it prohibits the federal government from implementing teacher evaluation systems. Number two is that it requires states to develop their own goals to gauge student performance, not just test scores. Number three, and this is a direct quote from the article, evaluations must be meaningful, providing all teachers with clear and actionable feedback linked to tailored professional development. And then finally, the last thing I took away from the article is this act protects educators from inefficient evaluation systems and provides administrators a guide to implement the correct evaluation system. There's a citation below. Main things that we took away from this basically just told me that you can't have an evaluation system that is not tailored towards professional development. It has to be meaningful and has to have clear goals and actions linked to it. So the NEA is obviously a big advocate in protecting teachers and making sure that everything is done the correct way. The second article, which was teachers' evaluations head to court. In this article, several court cases are provided that dealt with challenges to teacher evaluation. Court cases came from the following states: Florida, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, Tennessee, and Texas. Obviously, there's a lot more, but those were kind of the focus of the article. And the results depended on the case. Sometimes it seemed to me that the state usually would win. The judge would usually vote and for the state. But other than that, it was interesting to see that a lot of these cases had to deal with evaluations, and teachers either were terminated for the wrong reasons or due to an evaluation that they disagreed with and challenged the courts. And so that was kind of new for me to hear about, and there's the citation below. And the last article that we had to summarize is teacher evaluation, which is an over issue. This article goes into depth over the issues facing teacher evaluations. It first talks about the history of teacher evaluations and how they came into the education system. The government and philanthropic groups have pushed for more ways to measure teacher effectiveness with the intent to improve student performance, which I think we can all agree with, that we always want to increase or improve student performance. And one way is to look at a teacher and see how they're teaching in the classroom, because obviously that's where all the instruction happens. Number two, the intentions were initially good in implementing these evaluation systems, but there were issues that popped up when the systems were put in place. Teacher unions and advocacy groups challenged the new law, citing different reasons, such as holding teachers accountable to student scores that they did not teach. This one really stuck out to me because it applies to me. I work in a pay performance district, so all of our pay is based on performance and classroom observations. And so my effectiveness rating relies on the English department, but I teach the AVID elective, and this applies to mainly elective teachers, social study teachers as well. Pretty much anybody who doesn't teach math, science, English are affected by this. So all my AVID students will take the test because they're all required to take English, but there are many other students that I do not teach, and those students will be included on my test scores as well. So if the English department's weak, or maybe we don't have a lot of retention for our English teachers and they're trying to boost up their scores, that affects me, and that is one issue that's been brought up with these evaluations. So it can be fixed. It's just part of the reasons why we try things and we see the mistakes and we fix them. The last thing I took away from it is that both sides of the aisle do have good points on these evaluation systems, but we need to continue to find the flaws and work together to improve the system. I feel like a lot of people now are either on one side of the aisle or other, don't really want to talk to each other, and it's become so polarizing lately that it is an issue that we need to work around. It's all about the kids. It's all about making sure that we have the best education system in the world, and we're competing on a global scale now, where in the past we were not competing on that global scale. And so it's important for us as educators and leaders in the education world that we strive to make those things. And our intentions are good, and no system is perfect, and so we just need to keep working towards what's best for our teachers, what's best for our students, and hopefully we'll come up with something that fits us. Maybe it doesn't fit everybody else, but it fits our district or it fits our state. And so I'm going to go into the evaluation process in Harrison School District 2. I worked in this district for 3 years, and then I went to a different district for 2, and now I'm back in Harrison. So this is kind of coming back from 3 years ago. I assume it's pretty much the same. It could have changed over the past couple of years, but from what I've seen and talking to my new principal, this is basically how it works. So just like a lot of systems, you have a pre-observation, you have an observation, and a post-observation. Evaluation first starts with the pre-op meeting, and that's where we just discuss the lesson. We talk about my objective. We talk about what do I want students to accomplish or learn. Then the observation occurs on the scheduled day. So we set a day ahead of time, and so the teacher can prepare and make sure that they're ready to go once the administrator or observer comes in. And then we finally meet in a post-observation meeting where we discuss the lesson and how I can improve or retain certain parts of my lesson. Obviously, you do have spot observations as well, where the administration will come in, or maybe even district will come in and provide a spot observation, pretty much a snapshot. They're in there for no more really 10 minutes of what they see in the classroom. So they can't observe everything. They're not sitting there for a whole lesson, but they'll take away certain things just by looking at that 10 minutes. And they'll mark whether it was the beginning of class, middle, or the end. And so they should be looking for certain things in the beginning, things in the middle, things at the end. But the big thing is that they've been pushing is student talk versus teacher talk. And really about only 5% of our lesson, depending on the lesson, should be teacher talk. And the rest should be students. And so that is more focused on collaborative learning and working, and have students working in groups, and the teacher's more of a monitor in the group. Obviously, that's not going to apply to every lesson, especially as a social studies teacher. I know that there's a lot of explaining sometimes, but it's death by PowerPoint, and we have to make sure that the students are getting those brain breaks because even I need them. And it's important that we make sure that we're instructing students where they can be engaged and they can use technology and they can work together and kind of develop those skills that are important in the career world as well. And so I just put this on here so you can get a snapshot of kind of how we get paid in our district. So as you can see, that if you're a new teacher, you're called novice, and you start off about $36,000. But as you can see, as long as for the first really 4 stages, so you have novice, progressing 1, progressing 2A, progressing 2B, and then finally proficient 1 is all judged by your principal. So that's all in building. Once you get past proficient 1 and try to get to proficient 2, it becomes a district review as well. So you'll have more district people in your room and evaluating you and looking at you. And so it's more pressure in a way, but it's also, if you're at that level, then you're already proven an effective teacher. So it shouldn't be that hard. But really, you kind of say, well, how do I get from novice to progressing 1 to progressing 2? It's all based on a lot of different, there's 7 pieces to it. And I won't go into all the 7 pieces, but every piece goes into this pie. So you have your performance evaluation, which is half of your pay scale. So if you get a good score on this pie, then you move up to the next level. And then you can see the other side is all assessment based. So a lot of people argue that this is not a good system, and some people argue that it is. It kind of, I look at it again as in between, because if you look back at this chart, you can see that you have a chance to earn a lot of money in the district. You can't go backwards unless, if you're going backwards, then you might have to be put up for review. But again, if you're at that level, then you're a pretty darn good teacher, so it shouldn't be a problem. I do not know any master teachers in my school, but I do know some exemplary ones, and they seem to have it pretty well figured out. But as long as you have a good performance evaluation, that's where those 7 pieces go into that 50%. They even include how involved you are in the school. Do you coach? Do you lead a club? How involved are you in the community? How do the students like you? How do they rate you? I mean, there's a lot of pieces that go into that performance evaluations besides just our spot observations and formals. But that does all include there. So it's a pretty well constructed pie. I mean, but there's always problems with it. But then again, the assessment piece is where people get worried, because we do have a district assessment, which is a big chunk of that right-hand pie. So, I mean, if you think about it, that's pretty nice, because it's your district, and your district creates those assessments. So as long as you're following that curriculum map that they provide, the roadmap, and say you need to teach these subjects by this time, then you should be okay. And as far as the kids understanding the content, that also includes that every teacher uses the district assessment as their final, and so the students have buy-in as well to say, well, hey, this is my final grade. It's 10% of my grade, so I'm actually going to care about it. Versus other state, like the state assessments, where students don't have as much buy-in because they know that they're not getting a grade on it. Obviously, your well-motivated students and go-getters are going to do well, or at least care. But in our district, it's low income, and so it varies on what students you have. And some students are really bought in, some students are not. It just depends on the group. But I think the school is responsible for creating that buy-in as well and doing it in an organic way, not in a forced kind of fake way. Our kids are going to figure that out. And so to kind of wrap this up, so we were supposed to find an example of if a teacher evaluation goes wrong in our district, or if they get unjustly let go, like what are the steps for that? In Harrison, I haven't heard much of this. I've had a couple friends who were let go. I didn't really talk to them in detail about it. I just know that there was some kind of misunderstanding, or they didn't like each other, so it ended poorly. But Harrison, I do know you do have the right to due process if you feel you're let go unreasonably, because I know my friends did go through that process. Unfortunately, with the pay-for-performance model, there is not much you can do if you are let go due to all the data used in your evaluation, which is concerning. But I also think that the district has a high turnover rate. Last year, we lost 90 teachers and like 30 administrators. So it's struggling to retain teachers and administrators. And so as long as you do your job and you show up and you follow their maps and you write your objective on the board and you do the bare minimum, then you actually have pretty good job security. And then if you go above and beyond, then you definitely have good job security. So this is a legal case I found in Florida. 7 teachers in Florida challenged the evaluation system, and it was really focused on that they can terminate a teacher based on low test scores. If they have 2 consecutive years of low test scores, then they can be let go. And it really doesn't matter if you're tenured or not. So the case is still pending to this day, and you can read more. It's a pretty short article, but it just talks about that these 7 teachers were highly effective. They disagree with the way evaluations are conducted in their state and also their district, and so they brought this challenge to the court, and it's still pending. So as a future school leader, how would I ensure that the legal issues are followed regarding the evaluation process? I would make sure that I'm very organized and detailed with my observations. I would also make sure that I'm educated on the issues, making sure I know the law, and also following the district's policies. I also believe it's vital to be honest with your teachers on how they can improve, but I'm not making them feel threatened. And so my goal is to retain the best teachers I can, and hopefully the state, and making the evaluation process easier for my staff so they know exactly how they're going to be judged. They know exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm honest with that, and I provide good feedback, constructive feedback, so they can always get better, regardless if they've been teaching 1 year or they've been teaching 30. So it's just making sure that I'm honest with them, that they know I care about them, that I'm not there to fire them. I'm there for the students first, really, but also there for them, and making sure that they're getting the support that they need in order to be the best teacher they can be. And I hope that can be enough to improve morale, and so teachers are excited to come to work, teachers feel supported. I think that's a huge thing that some schools are missing, and I think that affects the evaluation process. So stay up to date on the legal issues, make sure we care about our teachers, and I think that's the best thing that you guys can do. It's obviously my opinion. So other than that, that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.